So it looks like I'm just going into that mask. Just making sure it's not cutting out with the UVs. Adjusting the roughness. Important. Getting the base. So we get color going into overlay. Just adjusting it. So edge color is going to be roughness as well. Just as a general rule, you want to put edge roughness on most things, and then the severity is going to just depend on whatever the material is. So it's important to just keep a reference going, keep looking at a reference, and from there you can decide. But it's always smart to have edge color. And that goes with edge wear, noise, roughness, base color. It's all kind of a nice template to use on everything. So I'm gonna do another fill layer, and I'm gonna add some noise, scale it up like that. About 15. Go back to the mask, check it out. And then that is going to become a color variation. So you can see that there might be a little stretching on the UV, so you can probably paint that out after. Change it to overlay, base color, change to overlay so it kind of sinks in there. You see it a little less. Raise up the color to just be able to see it a bit more. And that just gives a nice, it just gives a nice differential. It just varies it up a little bit, looks a bit different. Yep, just breaks up the color. That's all we're looking for. Don't want it to be too intense either. Don't want it to be too intense. Just checking it on. So this mask is going to apply to all these materials. Noise, roughness. And then we just duplicated it, changed the channel. We're going to go to the color here and just have it on overlay as well. And then adjust it as we need to. And it gives that material that pop that's so important. All right. We're going to move on here. Okay. Gonna add edgeware generator, and we're gonna have some roughness and color breakup. A lot of this is just, it's honestly guesswork for a while. You have an idea of what you want it to look like. You have a reference that you want to try to replicate. But sometimes, the first time around, you got to tweak stuff. It's not always going to be perfect. So a lot of times you're going to come back to it, a couple days later and be like, what was that? Why would I do that? And really just second guess yourself. And that's good to an extent, but if you find yourself doing that for a week, just decide just it's good enough or whatever. But sometimes you need a little bit of a break to just kind of let your decision-making the decision-making part of your brain kind of rest and reset and whatnot. So we had put down edge roughness. We're going to do the same thing just with base color. And the reason we don't put base color on that edge roughness with the roughness is because we don't want it to be on the exact same detail pattern. We want it to be a little bit different because it allows the material to look a bit more unique and a bit more imperfect because the color and the roughness aren't going to align perfectly. And here, it actually looks like I went for a scratch map. So I put metal edge wear on multiply, put a fill scratch under it, scaled up the scratch, and now you're getting just height information. I just have height going now, probably negative 0.01, and it's just height information on just the edges, so it's realistic. That's the purpose behind that. And you can paint out if you don't like certain areas. But yeah, it's a good method for getting height damage or whatever kind of edge damage you want to get on the edges. So I'm gonna add levels to kind of increase the contrast, make it a bit more intense, less scattered around. Reset it. Okay. Yeah, and afterwards you just paint out, what you don't want. So for screws, there's just one. I mirrored all of them, so, or maybe these are individual. Oh, mirrored all those, so. Okay. All those screws. Yep, so throughout the whole model, those screws are going to share the same material. That one. Gonna go back to the plastic here. Okay, so we're gonna add a metal edge again and get the edges some nice detail. So edge dents, we're gonna do basically the same thing. You can even copy that layer if you don't want to go through all the steps again. But edge dents, so yeah, wear level. I'm just adjusting, the grunge, the wear level, contrast, triplanar. If it looks weird, we're gonna put height and color. So just kind of eyeball the height at first, and then kind of hone it in as the map gets applied. Put it on overlay, the base color, so it looks a bit more embedded, looks a bit more natural. Base color, edge wear, put on multiply, and we're going to add a fill layer, put it below the edge wear, and then add whichever map you think is best. whichever one you think is best. Add the levels, increase the contrast, and scale it up to about 3. All right. And then adjust the balance. Yeah, it's nothing crazy. We just want to show some scuffing. So it's just a work in progress. So from there, the next thing to do, change a map out, test out a few different ones, play with the scale. I know you're looking to me for, straight advice. So you need to put X here, Y there. But realistically, after this tutorial, you're going to be, no, people aren't going to tell you exactly what you have to do. And this tutorial is very, rough and kind of a run and gun type thing. It's real time. So you're going to see me make mistakes. You're going to see me go back. But generally speaking, this is kind of what you want to do. And just play with the settings, Just because I have one thing set a certain way doesn't mean that, you have to do it exactly how I do it. So our edge dents, we raise roughness because when you scratch plastic, it gets rough. It's just a real reference thing. So I added a blur. Make sure to put it on top of your levels. And we're going back. This is edge roughness, actually. Sorry. So we're back there. And yeah, it looks terrible right now, but it all kind of comes together. Alright, so we copied our subtract. And that's basically to break it up. So I put a cloud fill layer set to subtract on the very top of the layer stack. And it just kind of takes away from your map. Very straightforward. And then that gives you kind of a much more tame, mild result. That's more realistic looking, definitely. Okay. Yep. So that's one of the first main details we're going to add to this base material. It's always good. The scratches, general scratching is always a good first material. If you feel like you're left behind, being left behind, then, pause the video, take your time, go back, see what I did. Again, it doesn't have to be exact as long as you get the details roughly in the same area, So, yep, I'm going to open Marmoset, check it out, see what the PBR looks like, if I'm way off, if I'm close, whatever. So, alright, so we're checking it. Looks pretty good. It actually doesn't look bad at this stage. Looks very raw, but in the base material you can see it. You can see the shimmer, the height, the roughness. It's kind of coming together, but it looks like a blank slate, basically. Yeah, it looks like a blank slate. I try to look at it at all angles. I've set it up on just a normal, a plane. Set it on like I've set it down 180, 90 degrees I've tilted it, and then I just put a You just put that one light. Just need one light. That's it. Just a single one. You know, if you want to get a couple test renders in, feel free. Base material looks decent. It looks pretty good. Quick test render. I find myself rendering a unthinkable amount through this tutorial, so seems like every 2 details I add, I just export the textures and then check it in Marmoset at 6 different angles. It's excessive, but at that point I'm thinking to myself, well, probably time to go for a walk or something like that, take a break, get a cup of coffee, do something, just get away from the computer at that point. Yeah. You get caught up in the little details. It looks nice. Good noise variation. Yeah. My favorite part about texturing specifically, I guess the pipeline is just trying to make it look as real as possible. That's my favorite part. I think a lot of people enjoy doing that too. It's a nice challenge, you get good reference, you can see other people's work, and you're like, wow, that looks awesome. You just want to try to make it close to that good, I feel that a lot. I look at a lot of these people on ArtStation, and it's just extremely motivating to see that, wow, somebody can actually be that good at 3D. You think, wow, I mean, if I tried to do that, it would take me, 5 years to make a gun that good, and it's a very linear curve. Or I guess at the beginning it's fairly exponential growth, but it does taper off, and you get to a point where it's like, okay, these little things actually start to matter, like how much like high poly softness, and where you put seams, and how well you pack UVs, all that stuff. At the end of the day, even if you're the best texturer, east of the Mississippi, all that stuff really makes a difference in the overall product. Because if one of those things are lacking, to the trained eye, you can really see it. You can tell. It's one of the first things you go through when you look at somebody's work. You're looking, okay, do I see sharp edges? Do I see, textures that are going through the UV lines? They cut off on UV seams. Stuff like that is ugly, and it really shows. And you can tell when somebody's a good artist when they can hand paint those things out, or just avoid the problem in the first place. Just stuff like that. But here I am adding some color variation. The concrete map is really good because it kind of has this nice directional contrast to it. It's not super contrasted, and it has a nice, scraped look to it. very even. And it allows to get these nice color variations that look very natural. I'm sure people use all sorts of different methods, and I'm sure there's 1,000 methods better than this. But this is just a nice way to add color variation that I found from watching other people. Good way to check your color is to go into your albedo map. And set the overlay here, which is smart. I don't think it should be red. Color breakup 1. We're gonna add another color. Set it to red. And we're gonna put the strength to 12. We barely want to see this thing. We don't want to see it a lot. These are the small details that can make a pretty big difference. You don't want to see the red, but you want to see it. You want to see it without seeing it is the best way I can describe it. Whether it's red or blue. You want it to be so subtle you can't directly see it, but strong enough where your eye sees it. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm gonna make a new layer. Ambient occlusion. It's a new generator for us here. And this is gonna be, I changed the curvature. Next thing I'm gonna do here, invert it. Change the balance, bring it way up. And contrast probably. I want to get in the crevices and darken them. That's the goal here. So, dirt might be the move. Get rid of the grunge. Contrast up a little. Dirt level. And then we're going to add. So it's just AO. That's what we're going to have it as. Just color. We're going to bring the color down. See, it kind of adds that shadowy. It gives you a bit of a assist. The ray tracing, it just really adds that shadowy look to it. Go into our color map, we can see it's darker. That's exactly what we want. That looks really good. That's it with that. That's what adds that nice contrast, that depth. Nice. Okay. So I copied that material, just Control C, went to a different set, and I pasted the new one. I copy the paint mask, paste that one, delete the old one, delete the old material, and then boom, we have our material pasted over. I know there's other ways to do this. There's like a parent material. But I honestly haven't learned it. I just discovered it was a thing. Yeah. It's kind of embarrassing to be honest, but that's okay. This isn't an optimization tutorial. This is mainly texturing. Texturing. That's what people want. That's what the people want. They want the textures. Back into Marm. It's looking the same, to be honest. I can see that AO. I can see that. I can also see that color variation. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. A little, yeah, again, it just looks bare, but it's at the early stages, so it's okay. Change up the lighting. We just got one directional light at about a 6.5. For some reason, it just goes to 649 every time. I don't know why, but it just does. We're going to render out an image, see what it looks like. Go from there. It's good to get these little checkpoints in Marmoset because it'll stop you if you're on the path to something you don't want. This is where you're gonna see it. If this is a portfolio piece, etc. If it's for a game, you're gonna see it in Unreal. So check it in Unreal. If it's portfolio, check it in whatever the last place this thing is gonna be seen in. In this case, I'm going Marmoset for portfolio, whatever. Just for fun. Marmoset's good because it's real, looks realistic. It's pretty quick, and it's very intuitive. The whole interface is easy to use. Okay, so this looks solid. That stuff up there, that's normal detail. It's getting there. Slowly but surely. So we're back in Substance Painter. Changing the color of this green. Or lots of exporting. adjust the lighting. There's a lot of changes that are going to happen throughout this whole process too. And I'm narrating this. If you can't tell, I'm narrating this afterwards. In case it's not perfectly synced up, etc. Or I say something and I don't do it. It's just because I didn't talk much while I was doing this, and I had to go back and properly narrate what was happening. And yeah, by the time this thing's done, so much changes. So just the key thing here is just to understand the main details I'm going for and just roughly how I did it. You don't need exact stuff. I highly recommend you don't try to do exact details unless it's like a super specific hand-painted detail or something like that. But with procedural stuff like this, it's pretty important that you kind of have your own take on it and your own freedom on where it should all be spread out. And if you understand the principle, then, you're much better off in the long run as far as being creative with your own stuff. So, yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier. I messed up that part there, which is fine. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but what are you gonna do? Well, really, I already said what you could do, but I'm not gonna go back and fix it. But that rubber's looking good. It actually looks good PBR value there. I'm trying to get this to be like a coated metal, just like the reference. So if you scratch it, you set your metal setting to 0.8, 0.85 right around there. It's like a thin coating of metal you have on there, and yeah, I'm liking the height there. It's pretty good. Might need to paint out a little bit of it with a subtract paintbrush, but it's looking pretty believable to an extent. There are some parts that it's in that's just not realistic, but got these screws just with a single material on there. We baked on the detail of the screw coming out the other end. It's setting up to be a pretty good texture. Adjust the lighting, get a different angle. Pro tip too, if you have if you get this type of lighting is going to show off roughness. This direct lighting where you don't see much of a shadow, you're going to see most of the roughness that's on this. So it's going to be sparkly when we zoom in on the polymer because the noise roughness is going to kind of be on the spotlight a little bit there. It's just mimicking reality. And when so we'll just wait on that and see. And by all means, I think I've said it earlier, if there's a lot of fast forwarding that you could be doing right now if you are just sick of me checking in and marmoset. I do the same thing every time. I just check the lighting, a couple different angles, and a few renders, check the material, see what it looks like, and then get back to texturing. That's basically all I do, so. Yep, and I believe I have a reference going off screen here. I just don't have it shown right now. But I was just from earlier videos, have that one up. Just the main one. Yeah, so it's looking a little liney actually, like the polymer has the white. See when you do those strong shadows, long shadows, you get to see the color. The albedo, the base color map shows a lot more. You can see the white outline on the edges. That's base color only. And you can see that it's pretty strong right now, so gonna have to adjust some of it at some point. Yeah, the focus, post effect, depth of field. It's one of my favorite things to do when rendering. This is a dark scene, but I'm just getting a feel for it right now. Absolutely one of my favorite things. It's the key. It's one of the many keys. There are many small little things to do to make renders look realistic, and I'd say one of them is to add depth of field. It's pretty crucial, especially on a shot like this, where you want to focus it on one part and leave other areas of rest. It's pretty important. It just really adds a lot. It's funny, it adds so much by taking away detail and focusing your eye on where there is detail. Just like a photo. Yeah, so that looks too white. Right, of course. Anyone would know that. You look at that, it's okay, this doesn't look real. It's real white looking. So we'll tone that down eventually and do some more to get through that. Yeah, fast forward. Feel free if you